Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I want to talk about astrology and this ongoing coronavirus outbreak. It's been labeled as, I believe, the novel or novel coronavirus. It's the 2000. It started in at least when they first had reported case connected with this. I believe it was like around mid-December of 2019. I know it was December 2019, and it is still ongoing, and it seems like it's escalating. At this point, this coronavirus, and sadly, according to Wikipedia.org, it's closing in on 10,000 people. And by the time this video actually gets to YouTube, it might have surpassed 10,000 people have been infected or affected by it. And there's like over 200, I believe, fatalities. So this is obviously potentially perilous. Now, I want to talk about some things like in astrology in general and some transits that are connected with things like this. I mean, this is something that, I mean, obviously you might have heard that WHO has declared officially that this is like I mean, this is a global dire situation right now. This is something that they've declared. I don't remember exactly what they stated, but something about it being very, very serious, and it's something that they wanted to warn people about. And it is obviously very critical. It could very well be a very strong crisis at this point, health crisis, and because you're talking about something that can be potentially perilous, because as I stated before, it's over 213 have been confirmed, according to Wikipedia, over 200 confirmed dead as a result. Now, the majority have been affected in China, but it still doesn't change the fact we're closing in on 10,000 people affected, regardless of where they are. They might now the United States might be have been minimally affected up until this point by it, but it doesn't mean it can't escalate. And I've actually seen some things right now. I mean, looking at you look at the two I see as the two main culprits as far as, I mean, you're talking about viruses, diseases. Now, Pluto is connected with viruses, but Neptune is diseases. These things can be very powerful in this kind of activity you're talking about right now. You're looking at for the United States. I mean, I think first I want to rewind that this coronavirus is connected with respiratory infections. Is the main, it seems to be the primary thing that is affected. Now, it may include fevers in some cases, or at least symptoms of this, I would say. I mean, but looking, I want to go to the United States and how they this might impact people in the United States, because you're talking about transit Neptune right now in that third house in the United States, going with the Sagittarius rising U.S. chart. And I understand there's controversy over the time of the U.S. when it was officially born. I mean, but I'm going with, I like the Sagittarius rising chart, so that's the one I'm going with. Uh, the thing about this is, now transit Neptune being in that third house. Now, the third house in astrology, remember, keep in mind, it can be connected with breathing. The third house in astrology corresponds with Gemini. And you're talking about transit Neptune in there right now, and will be in there for some time. Neptune, of course, could be about your dissipation, dissolving, and you're talking about, and you're also talking about a disease and tied in with breathing. This could be something that might be a little more protracted and prolonged than some may think. And I don't want to cause any great fear or put people in any great state of trepidation or fear, but I see this as something that could be around for a little bit anyway. It may not be last like a year or anything like that, but it can be, or it may be several months before this thing dissipates. It's kind of ironic. I'm talking about something that I would like to see dissipation, dissolving, and of course Neptune, it can be strongly tied in to two diseases. And you're talking about another transit too. that I notice is coming up soon, like around February 17th. You're going to have Mercury in Pisces retrograde, and Mercury, of course, can be connected with breathing and things of a respiratory nature. This is something in Mercury going backwards. It's not just about our communication. It can be about connect with breathing as well. And you're talking about being in Pisces, and Pisces energy could be very unclear, confusing, confounding. There may be more reports of people with this breathing issue connected with this coronavirus that they're going to be very unclear, perhaps at least where they actually got this from and how it was contracted. And the thing about this too, keep in mind that transit Pluto right now in the United States chart is closing in on the natal Pluto. I mean, the United States is currently in the Pluto return in the sign, of Capricorn, which of course could be about despondency and it's melancholy. So it could be adding some sad energy. Pluto can be about viruses, and it's closing in on the natal Pluto of the United Pluto is also associated with death. So you might see it might not be a great proliferation of deaths connected with what I'm talking about, but it may be a little bit more than what some people are anticipating. Also, transit Pluto is going to, or it may even now be making an opposition with the natal Mercury in Cancer in the United States chart. And I mean, the natal Mercury in Cancer is retrograde anyway, and now you're having transit Pluto make an opposition to it. So that is not necessarily a good thing. And I don't want to sound like too ominous or foreboding, but it is what it is. I think people need to take some precautions. They need to make sure they know they're not taking this lightly or being overly complacent about this. In the Sagittarius rising United States chart, Sagittarius of course is rising, and people may be a little bit more relaxed, complacent, and not really taking it really that seriously. I mean, Sagittarius energy could be very whimsical, lighthearted. It's very effervescent. It's upbeat, wants to be expansive and optimistic, but at the same time we have to be realistic about these things, people. So it's just something that I would like to warn others about, and just to be better to be safe than sorry, because just because the United States hasn't had an overabundance of these cases reported as of now, it doesn't mean it couldn't escalate sometime in the near future. So, and another thing too, keep in mind that like in March, you're going to have transit Jupiter will be conjunct transit Pluto. And as I've stated in previous videos, and some of you already noticed, that Jupiter can be very paradoxical. It's very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have the tendency to enlarge and expand. Now, in some cases, this could mean Pluto is about viruses. It can enlarge and expand those issues. So it's something we don't want to take lightly. If the precautions are connected with wearing that mask in these places where this issue is prevalent, by all means do so. Don't worry about what other people say or ridicule or being mocked or taunted. These are things that you have to do if you want to be protected from this and decrease the propensity of contracting this, because these are things that you don't want to take lightly by any means at all, people. So that's really mainly what I wanted to say as far as this goes. And the thing about this is that we can't, again, you're talking about something, a disease or a virus. It's not something that we want you to say, oh, it's okay, this is just going to dry up and blow away, because people obviously are going to have to work very hard in order to do this. And right now, another thing too we have to remember is that when you hit like late February of 2020, you're going to have the conjunction with the Sun hitting the Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And the thing about this is this could put, the Sun can be about our focus, and it could be putting a strong focus on these breathing, related issues, and again, being in Pisces, some that could be very nebulous and unclear, and maybe even causing some kind of chaos in some areas. So I mean, Pisces energy, of course, could be very chaotic, and that would likely be a vast understatement. So it is something to look at, people, and really take into consideration that, and remember that the sun, when you have afflictions with the sun, can also be, I mean, you have even conjunctions, they could be sometimes about some kind of infection. I mean, the sun is, I mean, the ascendant in astrology is more dominant in the physical body. You're talking about transiting energy. The sun can be connected with the physical body. The sun can also be connected with the physical body to some degree in the natal chart, but not as dominant as the ascendant, of course, but it can play a certain role in certain issues with the physical body. And you're talking about Mercury in retrograde in Pisces being conjunct the sun in Pisces in late February of this year, 2020. And another thing I want to add, where there can be some things in your chart. I mean, if you're having like a transit, if transit Neptune or Pluto is on your ascendant or on your Mars, or even your sun, this could be your natal sun. It's especially important to be careful about this virus going on, because if you have this could indicate more of a susceptibility to you being physically contacted by it if you're in an area where this is prevalent. If you're not in an area where it's prevalent, it's not as much of a concern, of course. But the thing about it is, you also keep in mind, if you're having another thing to look at, let's say even if you're having transit Neptune making an adverse aspect to your natal sun, Mars, or ascendant, you might feel more like fantasizing, daydreaming, as opposed to doing things. You might be feeling more lethargic and lackadaisical, and you might feel a little bit weaker, and it might be harder. It could lead to a certain weakness in you as well, I would say. Possibly. I mean, you're talking, and if your chart also is something where you have, like, there's indicators of a weak constitution, if you have Saturn on the ascendant, or let's say you have a Cancer or Pisces ascendant, or even Sun, this could be, I mean, it might be harder to come back from something like this if you actually get it. If you have the ascendant at 29 degrees. Let's say, I mean, if you have the ascendant at 29 degrees, I mean, you're talking about something with the physical body, and it could indicate, and 29 degrees in astrology is a crisis degree, and it could indicate physical issues where it's hard to have that to be resilient, and to come back from debilitations connected with the physical body. So it's something, your 29 degree sun or the ascendant, it can indicate issues with the physical body that may be debilitations that you may have a difficult time bouncing back from. So it's really important to kind of look at your chart as well, and how certain transits could be affecting you. And if you're in an area where where you feel this virus is more prevalent, more prominent, or what have you, you need to be very careful and safeguard and take your necessary precautions. So anyway, people, don't really have too much more to say in this. And also, too, if you've got Gemini strong in your chart, that could also be, you might have a greater propensity or proclivity toward breathing respiratory disorders. Just say if you've got the sun, or you even have the sun ascendant, or even the moon in Gemini, possibly. I have the moon in Gemini, so I need to be a little extra careful, because if I'm happen to go into an area where this is prominent. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment, and until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.